and good morning. Good noon. It's noon. It's a little afternoon. I think it's 12:02 or something. It is Friday, and that means it's time for our Facebook Live right here at Abundant Health and Wellness. I'm Dr. Polly, and some of you know me and some of you don't. I want to thank you to all the people that do tune in regularly and watch. We're doing a little sound check, so hopefully you can hear me. We've had problems with sound in the past, so I'm going to give people a little bit of time to log in and see if you can hear me. Shoot me a quick note and let me know if you are hearing, because we've been doing this for a little while and we've been having troubles with the sound effects. So do we have sound? Are we on? Voice check. I need mic check, right? Testing. 1, 2, 3. Testing. Okay. I'm good. Okay, and I'm getting all kinds of little pop-up thank yous. Okay, good. Okay, so today, thank you, Monica. Appreciate that. Today, I want to talk to you about some things because there's a lot of misinformation out there as far as, thanks, Alva. I'm glad you can hear me. Thank you. There's a lot of misunderstanding out there as far as what to expect from a naturopathic doctor. And so I will get, some of you know, some of you don't know that I'm the women's director at my church. And my church is part of a really big denomination, and we've got denominational pages and that kind of thing. And so people will reach out from time to time on a Facebook post or on a private message, or you'll text me, and you'll ask me a question. And if you are a patient, then I can do something sometimes. But I get these random Facebook messages that say, Dr. Polly, you don't know me, but I'm a friend of so-and-so, and I have XYZ, and what can you tell me about it holistically? And, you know, that's really not something that I can do. I'm really prohibited by the law in advising you if you are not a patient. So one of the things that you can do, we always have to have intake forms, just like you would go to a regular MD doctor. We've got intake forms. But for us, we have to have a disclaimer on there that says, Dr. Polly is not a medical doctor, right? She is a naturopathic doctor. So we have to have in writing that you understand my limitations as a practitioner. I cannot advise you on medications. There are just a lot of things I cannot advise you on because I am not a medical doctor. I am a holistic doctor. So what does that mean for you? Well, if you want me to advise you, I'm happy to do that, but you've got to go on our website and you've got to download the new patient forms. Fill out those forms, fax them to us, or email them to us, and then, you know, email us your question or whatever, and then we'll be able to help you better. So it's just one of those things. I've got to protect myself, and I have to protect you. We had a lady that called in today, and she had been bitten by a dog, and she wanted to know what she could do holistically. And I can't tell you. Number one, I don't know who you are. And number two, I don't know what your medical history is. I don't know what other challenges that you are facing. And so it would be very, very irresponsible for me to advise you. So those are some kind of things I want to clear up, because a lot of times people will come in and they just expect, because they know me and they're my best friend, they just expect me to be able to stop what I'm doing and advise them. And while I would like to do that, it's just not appropriate as a professional. It's just not appropriate. Now, if I was just someone who did this for a hobby, that would be one thing. But as a professional, I just cannot do that. Okay, so I hope everybody understands that. So in the news this week, if you have any questions, go ahead and put those questions in, and we'll try and answer those. So in the news this week, I don't know if you guys are aware, but California has some of the strictest laws, if not the strictest state, with laws pertaining to chemical additives. And I think it's called Proposition 65 that the Californians voted on. And they have to have different gasoline. They have to have a lot of different things because California recognizes different chemical toxins and different things as possibly carcinogenic, and so they really want to protect the people in their state. So this week, California just decided or made it a law. I'm not exactly sure. It was an article that I read, so I'm not exactly sure where it is in the legislative process. But they have decided that glyphosate is a carcinogen, and so they are banning that use in California. So we've been talking about this for a little while, right? We don't want glyphosate in our food, and we are saying that glyphosate is in our food. Glyphosate is a pesticide, right? I was on my live radio program last week, and I was speaking about glyphosate and the different foods that glyphosate is in. And if you go back and look at our podcast, you'll be able to see the different lists of foods that are there. But I had spoken and I had said that one of the ways that we all get the glyphosate is that it is sprayed on the wheat crops and the corn crops, so that when they are ready to harvest the grain, they spray this herbicide on the crop, and what it does is it causes the plant to wither, and it causes the seed kernel to pop out more easily. So the farmers are getting a much higher yield with much less work. So it's all about the industrialization of our farms, right? So when I was saying this on the live radio program last week, the doctor that was on, he's got a wellness center in League City, and he said that not only do they spray the crops once, they actually spray them twice. So I had not heard that before. I have not researched that myself, but I have no reason to doubt this doctor. He's credentialed, and he's trying to help all of his people get well and that kind of thing. So they not only spray it once, but they spray it twice. So what is wrong with pesticides? Well, pesticides have heavy metals in them. Heavy metals are neurotoxins. Now, what is a neurotoxin? A neurotoxin is a substance that crosses the blood-brain barrier, and it creates a lot of havoc with the brain. It changes the neurochemistry. And so we want to be very, very careful what we're putting into our bodies. We want to be very, very careful of the foods that we are eating so that we are not ingesting this glyphosate. Now, there are 26 countries in the world, when I checked this morning, okay, that have banned glyphosate in their industrial farming. So these countries are, here's a few of them, there's 26. Malta, Sri Lanka, the Netherlands, Argentina, Australia, China, okay, Mexico, Russia. All of these countries have banned it. All of the European Economic Community have banned it. So what about us in the United States, right? Why are we not banning it? Okay, somebody wants me to spell glyphosate. Glyphosate, I think. Glyphosate. I think that's how you spell it. G-L-Y. If you just type that in, you'll get it. You'll Google it, okay? So why isn't the United States doing that, right? So, well, the current U.S. food czar, you remember back in 2009 when we appointed a food czar? Well, the food czar is a Mr. Michael Taylor, and he is an attorney. And he used to be the vice president of Monsanto. Now, we all know the name Monsanto. It is a chemical company. And this Mr. Michael Taylor used to be a vice president there. Now, he was appointed to the FDA. His real title is the Deputy Commissioner of Foods. So, he was appointed in 2009, and he's still there. And when asked about the problems with glyphosate, he says, well, it's a very sensitive subject. Well, I wonder why. He used to represent them. He may have financial holdings with them. So this is something that as consumers, and one of the things that our president has done is he's trying to limit lobbies. So this is the thing. If I had a lot of money, right, then I could pay professional persuasive speakers to go to Washington, D.C. and advocate on my behalf. Well, you know, I have a company. It's a small company, and we do okay, but we don't have the millions and millions of dollars that it takes to go to Washington and lobby for this thing or that thing. But the big companies do. For example, we all see the ads that say, milk, it does a body good, and you've got little white milk mustache, right? And whenever you come into a naturopath's office or a holistic healer's office and you tell them that you drink milk, and they're going to go, oh my goodness, don't drink milk because of all these things. And so we can prove to you that milk is full of hormones, it's full of antibiotics, and it's got cow pus in it. So why would you want to drink it? Well, because we've been programmed through the advertising that milk is good and it's necessary for strong bones. Now, before I knew what I know now, I believed that. My mother kind of force-fed us milk, and we drank a lot of milk growing up. But when I became an adult, I never liked the way milk tastes, and so it's just not something that I like. But because I didn't know any better, I really force-fed my kids on milk as well. And, you know, I thought if they drank the milk that they wouldn't have any problems. But, you know, when my kids were little, my son broke his arm a couple of times. He broke an ankle one time. And I thought, oh, my goodness, how is he breaking all these bones when we drink all this milk? So if you do your research, you'll find that milk is not really bioavailable to the human body. It's full of hormones, which are estrogen disruptors. And so what that means is our young girls are coming into puberty a lot younger. Our boys are having too many xenoestrogens. I think that the milk consumption is part of the feminization of the American male. I don't know if you guys are old enough to know, but I've been around for a while, and it just seems like the men just get a little bit more wimpy as the decades go on. And so I think it has to do with all of the estrogen disruptors, because all of our food is in plastic. We drink from plastic water bottles, all these kind of things, and so the BPA and all that is a chemical or a family of chemicals that cause endocrine disruption. And so we don't want to do that. So back to my story, right? So if you've got a lot of money that you can put these great advertising campaigns in order, then you can sway the opinion of the masses, because people that don't have mega bucks are not able to do that with the lobbies and so forth. So this is why at the grassroots level, we need to be working with our congressmen, our senators, certainly at the local and state level, and let them know what we know about glyphosate. Now, again, glyphosate is not the only potential problem with the pesticides. All pesticides are neurotoxic. Again, they cross the blood-brain barrier, and it causes problems for us. It messes up the neurotransmitters. So what happens when you have messed up neurotransmitters? You're not going to sleep properly, right? Your serotonin level is going to go down. Your dopamine is going to go down. What is dopamine good for? Dopamine is the hormone that you need, or sorry, the neurotransmitter that you need so that you don't develop Parkinson's disease, okay? People that have Parkinson's disease, their doctor will put them on a prescription, L-Dopa, right? And they will take that medication. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But what if we quit poisoning ourselves and we have our own dopamine? Wouldn't that just be a better thing, right? So what we want to do is we want to work at the grassroots level, try and work with our senators, our congressmen at the state level, and then they'll push it on up to the national level. There was a bill that went before Congress last year, I think it was, wanting to get our foods labeled that they were genetically modified. Now, the glyphosate is part of the carrier for these genetically modified organisms that actually change the DNA of our food. So, that went before the Congress last year, and it was vetoed, not once, but I think it was vetoed twice. Somebody needs to fact check me on that because I did not look that up, but I think it actually was vetoed twice. I'm very, very disappointed in the legislators from our great state of Texas, because I have spoken to a number of them, and they know my viewpoint. So we need everybody else to get on there and tell them your viewpoint too, because we don't want to be buying foods that are genetically modified. This is why if you look on our webpage, you go back through our recent blogs, you go back through our recent Facebook pages and our podcast, you'll see linked to there some foods that have the glyphosate in them. Your cereals do, your breads do, your pasta products do, your seasoning packets, your gravy packets, all of those have the glyphosate in there, and you just don't want to be doing that. You don't want to be giving it to your children. You don't want to be having it for yourself. So those are some things that we want to kind of talk about. The other thing I want to talk about is antibiotics, okay? So we've been talking about antibiotics for a while, and I've got this huge report. The report is only really an abstract, and thank you guys for joining. I don't see who you are yet, but I appreciate I see all the likes coming on. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pages of references. These are medical references. This is not Dr. Google. This is medical reference. Some of them are government websites. Some of them are journals, like academic journals and cancer journals and all that kind of thing. So, Angie. Hey, Angie. How you doing? So we're going to talk about antibiotics. So one of the antibiotics, and we've seen this on the television, that one of the brand names is Levaquin. You're going to see this on the TV. You're going to see that there's a class action suit against the makers of Levaquin. Now, Levaquin is a class of antibiotics to be used in the most dangerous situations. Now, some of the brand names, hey Janice, thanks for joining. Some of the brand names are Levaquin, Cipro, Avelox, okay? Almost every generic ending with a quin or an oxen or an ox. All right, so if you've got an antibiotic with those endings, then you have this family of antibiotics. Now, we knew years ago, because I had done a little bit of research, but we knew that patients that had Levaquin, that they were very, very susceptible to rupturing their Achilles tendon. And sure enough, I had a family member that had gone into the hospital for some surgery. It was kind of an emergency surgery. And he was given Levaquin as his antibiotic. And sure enough, within 9 months, he was out on his bicycle, and the Achilles tendon just popped. And so he had to go back into the doctor and have that repaired, go back in the hospital and have that repaired. Now, what's happened subsequently is a lot of joint issues, a lot of tendon issues. And so I just want to read a little bit about this so you can make your own, you can just make your own choice about what you want to do. So these antibiotics are a class of antibiotics known as fluoroquinolones, okay? Fluoroquinolones. I know somebody's going to want me to spell that, right? Fluoroquinolones, okay? So this came out as of July last year, 2016, so just about a year. They cite, the FDA, this is the FDA, cite, quote, multiple system damage that may be irreversible. So, irreversible means that you got a problem. It's not gonna stop. It's not gonna repair itself. Okay, so you really need to look at this, because you don't want to take anything that's going to cause multiple system failure. Okay, so This is a testimony of a young lady that took Cipro for a UTI. Now, UTI is a urinary tract infection. I have had a lot of patients come in and they have been on Cipro. Now, this class of antibiotics is for worst case scenario, like antibiotic resistant bacteria, right? This is not for a common UTI. So as these drugs are being used more and more frequently and more inappropriately, what is happening? We are spawning a new family of bacteria that are antibiotic resistant. Anyway, so this lady goes on to say that she took this Cipro for her UTI, and it says that it literally changed the path she was walking on. She had multiple spontaneous tendon and ligament ruptures, spinal degeneration, and arthritis that was so widespread that she could no longer walk. She could barely even crawl. So that's pretty intense, right, for a UTI. A UTI, they come, they go. There's probably not a human being alive that's not had a UTI at one time or another, especially if you're over 30, right? If you're a kid, if you're a teenager, maybe not so much. But if you're an older person, and we do have people that come into the clinic, they've had UTIs for the last 35 years, right? Following a surgery or following catheterization or whatever that introduced E. coli into the urinary tract. So, anyway, these fluoroquinolones are supposed to be the last choice, the desperate choice of antibiotics, right? They actually damage the mitochondria of the DNA. So, what is your DNA? And we've been talking about this and we've been learning about this. Remember, I told you last week that I was on my way to a conference, right? So, I learned at that conference that not only is your DNA the blueprint of your genome, which we knew that, of course, I knew that, but also the DNA is specific to each individual, and it tells the foods that you eat, the amino acids that you take in, it tells those amino acids how to congregate and form the exact enzymes that you need so that you repair and replace your own body parts. So this is really important, because if our food supply is damaged, as we talked about earlier with the glyphosate, or if the antibiotics that we're taking damages our DNA so that our DNA can't replicate properly and our DNA can't tell us what we need to do as far as taking the amino acids that we get and to form the enzymes, then we're in a world of hurt, because guess what? We can't go down to the store and buy new parts, right? We've got to either regenerate them ourselves or we have to have a transplant. Well, I'm not really in the market for a transplant, and I really can't go down and buy a new organ or system or process. What I want to do is have my DNA work properly so that the amino acids that I'm ingesting through my protein, right, is the raw material that my DNA takes to manufacture the specific enzymes that I need to repair and replace my own body parts. So, this is important. Now, you may remember that in January, I started doing bone broth as a meal replacement. Now, I didn't understand all that I was doing, but I liked the fact that the bone broth tasted good, because I got the chocolate variety, of course. So if you know me, you know that I do that, right? And I liked it because it had all 24 amino acids. So I didn't really understand that the amino acids caused me to be able to make the enzymes that I needed, but I knew that it was important that the amino acids were the building blocks. They were the building proteins that I needed for my body. So I knew that. I remembered that from 4th grade health class. So I'm sure you did too. But what I didn't know is that by getting those amino acids in that pure, unadulterated form, then they could go right to my DNA and do what needed to happen so that I would have the right enzymes. And I think, as I told you, hey Ashley, good to see you. I think I may have told you that after I did that for a period of 21 days, that not only had I lost 19 pounds in 21 days, but also the actual shape of my eye changed. And so when I went to the eye doctor said, "Oh, your contacts aren't fitting right because in the left eye particularly, I had an astigmatism, and the astigmatism was no longer there." So the eye, if you know anything about astigmatism, your eyeball is supposed to be round. Well, mine was kind of shaped like a football. So after doing this bone broth and having those amino acids, they congregated in such a way as to produce enzymes that actually changed the shape of my eye for the better. So I didn't understand that that was the mechanism until I went to this conference last week. But now I understand that we've got to do the enzymes, and we've got to make sure that our mitochondria stays the way it needs to. So I am running out of time. I'm looking at the time. We've got patients coming in this afternoon, so I'm not going to be able to stay with you for very much longer. But what you need to know from this little snippet today is that you don't want to be taking antibiotics that are going to change your mitochondria in your DNA. You do want to make sure that you have complete proteins so that you get all of the amino acids that you need to form all of your enzymes. Hey, Carrie. Also, lentils are not a complete protein. I'm just going to say it. I said it on the radio station, and somebody called me up and told me that I was wrong and I needed to repent. But I did my research, and I even researched again. And no, lentils are not a complete protein. So you need complete proteins so that you get all of your amino acids so that you can make the appropriate enzymes. So I will see you next Friday. It's July 4th on Tuesday, so you guys be blessed and enjoy your family day and celebrate the birth of our nation. And so this is me saying goodbye.